Welcome back to Counterculture here with Pastor Mark. We talk about things, all kinds of things,
All sorts of things.
like chickens, but we're not today. Talking about other things. So
Right.
I want to read a story for you, then get your thoughts very seriously. Genesis chapter 25. Starting 29 says this: Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came into the field and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Esau said, "I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me now." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose up and went his way. And Esau despised his birthright. We live in a culture right now where this happens all the time. People absolutely going bonkers over things and making it to the extreme, right? I don't believe for a second that Esau was really going to die here, right? He just felt like he was going to die after working a hard day's work. I know what that's like from being in the hayfield and it's done at the end of the day and you feel like you're going to die.
This happened to me all the time when I was a kid.
It did.
I would come in, Mom, I'm starving.
That's right. That's right. So here's my question to you.
Yes.
How do we avoid this? How do we avoid being the Esau here, where we
How do we avoid drama? Being
experience
drama?
something be a little over dramatic? Now listen, I am a drama king, so I get that. I understand. Like there's a need for that, right? You need to be expressive, a need for people to know that you're all these things. But there is a point where we go a little bit too far, but we actually could get here where we sell our birthright, right? We sell ourselves out.
Yes, because we get desperate and we do not believe. There's a wonderful line from a book I've read called The Shack. Some like it, some don't. Some people don't like it and they haven't read it and they need to read it before they make that judgment. But anyway, I'm pretty sure there's a quote from the book where he says, when, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm giving you the idea. He said, when Jesus says to the main character, he goes, "When you fear the future, it's because you imagine it without me."
Yep.
And that is so true. When fear arises, it's often because we're imagining, we're future tripping, if you will, to use a quote from Paul Young. We're telling ourselves stories, and we're always telling ourselves stories. He's telling himself a story. I'm just going to die. I'm going to die. Give me some of that. Give me some of that. But how many of us, we just feel like pick your poison.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to have some food. I got to have this. I got to have that. Gerald May says we're all addicted to something. It's a matter of what.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, what are we willing to sell our soul for? That 15 minutes of fame, whatever. Whose opinions really matter to us? There's so many things that control what we're willing to sell out for.
So I think that one of the things that we're living through right now is this divisiveness that's going on all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to do very much at all to get people to be at each other's throats, mm-hmm. right? You just throw a term out there and immediately they pick up sides. Right? It's like you used to always say that about, you want to get guys to quit fighting, throw basketball out on the court and they automatically just pick teams and they play basketball, right? But we have people who are deciding hills to stand on that don't make a lot of sense, right? We're arguing, we're fighting about things that
dying
just
on
don't
6-inch crosses.
Exactly, right? And so again, at the moment, it seems like a cross we want to die on, right? Mm-hmm. But I've seen over and over, so have you, in meetings with people and, board meetings and corporate things where somebody decides out of an intensity of the moment to make this a hill to die on, only later to realize what they gave up for that moment, right? Like, what?
Axes to grind. How much, is, and the question we just have to ask ourselves, okay, look, he's hungry.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it my wife has taught me? Halt. Hungry, angry, I can't remember the L, and then the T is tired. That cause us to make bad decisions. What was the L again? I can't remember. Anyway, she'll correct me when I ask her this afternoon, tell me what it was this afternoon. But there are certain things that cause us fear. Fear. Oh, I'm gonna. Let's face it. This happens in the church.
All the
Pastors. How many times have pastors compromised or said, "Okay, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go ahead and do this because I don't want to lose them because we're going to lose their tithe and this, that, and the other thing." I bet people say, "Pastor, we can't lose them because they give something." Why can't we? Whose church is this? Is it God's church? I had something. We had lost a couple one time, and they were moving. It wasn't because they were mad; they just were moving. And I had someone come to me, "Pastor, what are we going to do now?" I said, "What are you talking about?" Well, they did so much, and there was other things they did that was not helpful to the church, but I won't get into that. And I said, "We're going to go on." I said, "The church is not about them.
Yeah.
It's about Christ. It's about God. It's about the Holy Spirit. It's about the Trinity. We're going to continue on with what God wants us to do, and we're going to let Him provide." And it was funny because that couple left, and there was another couple that God brought into our church for like a year and a half, 2 years, that actually covered what they gave in tithe, but also did other stuff. And it was cool. And it's like, who are we putting our faith in? And then we said, okay, I've got to have this. We got to do this. How many churches have said, well, we got to get back to normal. Okay, well, and as I said to my church one day, I said, I don't want to go back to normal if normal was not doing what God wanted us to do.
Yeah.
You got to have a children's ministry. You got to do this. You got to do that. No, we don't. Rick Warren, when he was starting Saddleback, if they didn't have someone to do the ministry, they didn't do it. And they had people walk because they didn't have the youth ministry, whatever. But then you do it poorly. Is that glorifying God too?
So rather
There's some things we can't do.
Rather than raise somebody up, we just fill the position.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about.
And they do it poorly, and you get all the other sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Possibly.
The last question I have about this is from Jacob's perspective, right? He sees his brother in need. I mean, obviously his brother was hungry. That's need in general. Rather than having compassion instantaneously,
it's like just
he thinks about himself, right? How do we, in a culture where this is trained up, right? We're having a moment with somebody, and rather than our instant thing being compassion for where the person is, we immediately think about ourselves, right? Whether that's in whatever realm that is, whether we're like Jacob, we want to get something out of it, right? Or we're just plainly defensive, or we're just whatever it is. Why can't we, and how can we learn how to maybe look at situations and just immediately have compassion rather than what can I get out of this? Or what about me?
In my circles, it's called carnality, and people need to surrender that to the Lord, and through sanctification, let God deal with it.
Right.
Let God deal with it. And we go to what Paul said. And here's the problem, and I've talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again because apparently you're not listening, Andrew. Paul says, each of you should look not only to your own needs. Philippians, maybe?
Yep.
Okay. Each of you should look not only to your own needs, but to the needs of others. Except for the problem is only is not in the Greek.
Right.
So why is it in there? Because
it sounds a lot better.
It sounds better that way. Because here's the thing, and I said this: if we have 6 people in the room, and we're sitting in a circle, and I'm okay. You're to my left, so we're going to go to the left, and I'm going to say, okay, each of you should look not to your own needs, but to the needs of others. So I'm going to look. My job is to look to your needs.
Yep.
You're going to look to the next guy, and on around. Eventually, my needs will be met if we all do this. If we get our eyes off of our own selves. Now, are there things, because it's fear? I think it goes back to fear base. I'm not going to have enough. I'm not going to have enough. I'm an Aldi shopper, okay, and we have several places around here that they buy stuff, like we have a store called Ollie's around here. And what I've learned is that sometimes they're like the Aldi, they call it Aldi fines. This is not a plug for them, and they are not sponsoring this video, okay. And so what they are is they're fines. They get them only for a short period of time.
Yep. They're not going to carry them.
So I've learned I better buy up as many of those as I can, so I will have them for a while. And the Lord convicted me about it one day. He's like, really? Because sometimes that's what makes it a treat. And then I'm robbing someone else of enjoying this because I'm like being a hoarder and I got to have all this. And are we not doing that today too? Oh, I better get it. Forget anybody else. I got enough for me. So the problem is the culture. The church has not changed the culture. Culture, as Dana Douglas used to say, which is what it's supposed to do. The culture is changing the church. And I've been guilty of it. We probably all have to some degree, because there is that part that we are afraid that our needs are not going to be met.
So again, that creates the whole problem. We live in a culture where we want our needs to be met, and we're willing to meet somebody else's as long as ours will be met.
Yes.
But the whole idea of what you're saying here is, it doesn't matter if you're going to meet my needs.
Yes.
I need to meet your needs. So the second I say, Mark, I need you, it doesn't matter if I've ever met your needs before, if I'm going to meet your needs in the future, if I'm even meeting your needs now.
Great line, Bing Crosby in White Christmas. Oh, don't worry about it. Everybody's got an angle. You know, and so how cynical, and you know, of course, then Rosemary Clooney says, "Well, what a cynical attitude," you know, and it is. Are we? We're thinking, well, what do they?
Yeah.
What do they want? Mm-hmm. What do they want? I get the phone calls all the time. Well, here we go, Pastor. You doing anything?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to answer that question. What do you want me to do?
That's
because I may not feel comfortable doing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Rather than it being about whether I'm doing something
right
or not, it's about well,
and here's the sad thing. I have people saying, "Well, the pastor wants to take me to lunch. He must want me to do. He must have something he wants me to do." Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe I just want to go and see how you're doing. There's an idea.
I don't know. You make you feel guilty about lunch.
I know. You know. But hey,
counterculture.
I may pass this way but once.
Well, let's leave it there. We will we'll continue on.
Red Stew. You're missing out on Red Stew.
There you go.
All right.
That's a good title. Red Stew.
Red Stew.
All right. Hey, we'll see you again next time. Counterculture.
Grace and peace.